They didn't sue just Diddy. They sued. Her attorneys were really brilliant. They didn't sue just Diddy. They sued his corporations.
They sure did.
And they sued his corporations and sued as her, in her capacity as an employee. When you do that, it triggers commercial liability insurance.
Yeah.
And it triggers another policy called directors and officers. Okay. And we know he's a director of these companies as the CEO. So now you got two policies. What happens then is it takes away Puffy's ability to settle. It's not his choice no more.
So it's no longer personal accountability. It's his organization.
It's his organization. And it's no different than like if you hit somebody with your car.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you have State Farm. Mm-hmm. State Farm gets to decide to settle, not you. You could say, I didn't run the stop sign. That's not true. They're lying. If State Farm says, we don't care, we did our investigation, we're settling. That's it. That's what happened here. So because they added those claims, the corporate insurance carrier got to say, read over. That was a little breakdown, y'all, that I did, I guess, when Cassie first got her settlement. So let's go ahead. We are going to break down the afternoon testimony that we've received today. Afternoon testimony. If you watched this morning, I'm your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. Thanks for joining me. I've been practicing for over 17 years. I represent people on the plaintiff side in civil suits, just like the one Dawn has had or Cassie has had. But I've also had experience. I represent defendants in criminal felonies, misdemeanors, all of the above on their sides as well. So I'm giving you my legal take. I'm going to let you know right now. When I give my legal take, y'all, I break this down as though I am breaking it down for my drunk homegirls at brunch, where either I'm drunk or they're drunk. So that's the analysis that you're going to get here. And I break it down into really digestible pieces. All right. So here's what has just happened. I'm giving you the update from this afternoon. Now, this morning, they finished up with Dawn this morning. There we go. This morning, they finished up with Dawn this morning. The significance of Dawn's testimony was that Dawn was supposed to or assisted with providing both further support about how, in effect, Cassie was being coerced and forced to do certain things with violence. So she gave examples of that. But she also gave some significant testimony about the use of controlled substances and forced labor. During the break, and I'm going to pull it up when I get a chance, but during the break, I watched a video, Tisa Tells. She did a really good, quick little breakdown when she was on her lunch break today of Dawn's testimony. And I would agree. I said earlier this morning, I felt that I was kind of hoping for and looking for more from Dawn's testimony than what we received. However, there were a lot of motions this morning from both sides, and the defendants were really trying to limit what Dawn could talk about. And it seems like they were fairly successful. But when I get a chance, I'm going to play Tisa's afternoon update. She has a component where she talks about what I believe is the more relevant part of the testimony that she had included, that Dawn included for today. Okay, so let me go. Let me get this. But for right now, what we've got, here we go. The main thing is we came back from lunch and they were still on, they were still on with Morgan, Miss Morgan, Kerry Morgan. And so they're back. Kerry Morgan's job is to speak both to what she saw Miss Ventura experience, but also Kerry's testimony was to provide more information on how the enterprise worked, right? This is a RICO case. So they also want to know, how was it that Diddy was allegedly ordering people to do his dirty work, in effect? So here we go. So this was, so let me see, here we go. During lunch, they had different arguments where they were trying to get in certain evidence. And then the judge says, if I let this in, Miss Ventura could be recalled as a witness. There's certain evidence. We'll find out about it here. AUSA says, I doubt that we would call her. The defense. The judge says the defense would call her back to the stand. The prosecutor, I doubt that she would be available The judge says, the evidence is out. The judge says, I anticipate that Mr. David James, that was one of Diddy's assistants, will be the next witness. How is he relevant? He's relevant as to the means and methods of the enterprise. Remember, I told you guys, when you think of means and methods, that really sounds like abstract. Like, what the hell is that? Think about it from the Montel Jordan perspective. This is how we do it. Means and methods means with RICO, you got to prove this is how they do it. This is how the enterprise functions based on Mr. Combs telling people what to do and threatening or assaulting people or what have you. Basically, they're trying to establish that we already know that Mr. Combs is an enterprise. It's literally called Sean Combs Enterprises. So all they have to show is that at times, not even all the time, but that some of the times, what Combs would do is he would have people do his dirty work, whether it was getting rid of people or crimes or beating people up, that sometimes they would do his dirty work. That is sufficient. And then there are certain offenses, which I went over this morning, we'll go into this evening, that they have to prove at least 2 of the 8 offenses listed in the indictment. That's it. They get RICO. All right, here it is. Again, the prosecutor says, as to the means and the methods of the enterprise, Mr. Combs threatening to assault people. While they're waiting for the jury to come back in, it says, here's a court art of Combs's second Georgia lawyer, Nicole Westmoreland. She's an African-American female, as she examined Don Richard this morning. This picture is courtesy of the Inner City Press. All right. Remember, Don Westmoreland is the woman herself who is an S assault survivor. She was R-worded at 19 years old at a Cash Money Records music studio. She ultimately both pursued it criminally, and the guy pled guilty to the R-word, got 3 years, and she took it to trial. That case literally had to go. Initially, it was dismissed at the regular local state court level based on summary judgment, basically saying you can't show that Birdman and his brother should have known that his homeboy who did this was a dangerous person. That was the gist. It got dismissed, appealed all the way up to the Georgia Supreme Court, where they reinstated her case. A jury found them guilty, and then she settled for an out of court amount. There we go. So I say she's not new to this whole concept. Then the defense attorney says, now we are on cross-examination with Kerry Morgan, Cassie's friend. It says, the prosecutor said no further questions from Ms. Morgan. Ms. Morgan's testimony, kind of the most significant. She talked about Diddy being upset that her and Cassie were doing substances. He came in, he got a wooden hanger and busted her upside the head with it. And that she received a $30,000 settlement, out of court settlement. She never sued because they gave her $30K, both Diddy and Cassie, back in 2013. Now, I personally am saying she should have got at least 6 figures. She had a concussion, and it was Diddy and it was Cassie, but whatever. Moving on. So here's the cross-examination of her defense. You were Miss Ventura's best friend since 2004. Actually, 2001, she says. We met waiting for the Polaroids to develop. I was living in Buffalo, New York, and she was in Connecticut. Then you were both in NYC, she says. Kerry Morgan was a model, by the way. You were both in NYC. She said, I stayed downtown. She moved to Harlem. Have you ever met Kim Porter? Yes, probably at a concert. Was Cassie ever jealous? Yes. That's good. Her being honest gives her credibility. Then the defense says, and the other way, she says, Cassie was speaking with Michael B. Jordan. I guess the other way was the movie. It says Cassie was speaking with Michael B. Jordan and Sean got jealous. She was trying to leave him. Sorry. By the other way, they mean, was Diddy ever jealous about Cassie? They're trying to establish, I guess, that he's human, that he loves her, that this is just a naturally toxic relationship, I guess. Hit that subscribe button, guys, as y'all come on in. I'm your legal bestie, Attorney Simone, breaking down this afternoon's testimony in the Diddy trial. It says Cassie was speaking with Michael B. Jordan and Sean got jealous. She was trying to leave him. You were both on substances. No, we were in South Africa. Did you learn about Gina? Yes. Kerry says he was having a full-on relationship with this little girl. Oh, y'all, she called Gina a little girl. I thought Gina and Cassie are like the same age. Let me see. Somebody tell me in the chat. How old is Gina? Hold on. Gina. Hey, hold on. Gina. Mind you, Gina is supposed to be the lost. Oh, the lost victim 3 that can't nobody. It says she's 33. Oh, yeah, that would be a little bit younger than Cassie. Okay. Yeah, because Cassie is closer to 38 or something. Anyway, so they're talking about Gina. Here they go. It says, he was having a full-on relationship with this little girl, talking about Gina. Why do you call her that? She acts like that, and she's younger than us. Lord. When you say Sean came and hammered on the door, why did the police come? They said because of the noise. What did they say to you? Cassie was she said Cassie was visibly injured, but she didn't say anything. You two were best friends for 18 years, but now you haven't spoken with her since 2018. That's true. At the attorney says, at the danger of being Captain Obvious, that's a long time. She's moved on. Objection. Next is, why haven't you spoken with her? She did not support me after Sean assaulted me. I draw the line at assault, she says. You reached a settlement with Miss Ventura. She said, the money came from Mr. Combs. Ooh! Important point of clarification, because the defense was probably trying to establish that it was Cassie that paid it. That makes sense. Combs gave the money to Cassie, like I said this morning. We know Cassie didn't have no money like that. She had what he allowed her to have, at least back then. Defense shows Kerry Morgan photos and then asks, do you know if Louise Hayes is a self-help author about self-affirmation? She said, yes. Why did you send him this with words of encouragement? I don't remember sending it. Okay. I want to show you a few more photos, but first, let's talk about the incident when he put his hands on your neck. Were you and Cassie using any substances at the time? Y'all, I'm talking YouTube friendly. She said, no. What did he say? He said, who is she cheating with? So basically, Diddy went to her, basically tried to choke her out so that she would have to reveal to him who Cassie was cheating with. Y'all, let me tell you. Yes, I hear so many people in the chat like, this is DV, this is DV. You right. It is. Hit that like. We've got over 1,000 people watching, but less than 100 likes. Hit that like and hit that subscribe, guys. Y'all, I hear you that this is DV, but the main purpose of this testimony is to also show his level of power and the level of the criminal enterprise. So his ability to not only track her down, but then to go to someone who has her secrets, who has the information of whether or not she's cheating or whatever, and choke that lady out. That is one of the methods and modes that the enterprise does their dirty work. It says, he then says, what did he say? He said, who is she cheating with? You went to urgent care and not to the hospital. Okay, hold on. Defense lawyer gonna say you went to urgent care and not the hospital. Right. Y'all, these are the kind of questions lawyers ask when they are so rich, they are disconnected and discombobulated from reality. Do you know why we go to urgent care? Because urgent care is fast. Okay. Hit that like, y'all. Urgent care is fast. The emergency room, you will be in there for 3 weeks waiting to be seen, unless you have a bullet wound. They prioritize bullet wounds at the emergency care. So he sounds goofy, basically implying the implication is it must not have been that bad because you didn't go to ER, you went to the urgent care. Urgent care can do anything that ER does. They're known for doing it faster, and it's probably better covered under your insurance if you have it. She said, you went to urgent care. She said, right. But the prosecutors, it was bloody, but you didn't tell the prosecutors it was bloody and that you went to the hospital. She said, I don't remember that. He said, look at this. He shows material and he shows her material, but it's not shown to the jury. She says, I see that I said that. Now there's cross. In other words, you didn't tell the prosecutors that you were bloody and that you went to the hospital. Urgent care is the hospital. So shut up to say, you went to urgent care, not the hospital. It is the hospital for us regular people. Excuse us. We don't have a doctor that can come straight to our house and give us a whole stitches and a whole one-on-one, home visit. Kerry says, I see that I said that. Now there's Cross, the prosecutor. Do you remember the defense asking you about an incident in LA? Objection. Overruled. And he hit her like in Jamaica, arguing about jealousy. What happened in Jamaica? He dragged Cassie by her hair down a 50-yard hallway. Was he talking about jealousy? No. He said she spent too long in the bathroom. Nothing further. Any recross? They said now. In other words, prosecution is trying to say, so the defense was trying to say, oh, this was just about him being jealous, and that the jealousy, of course, supports their theme of DV. In other words, oh, you can't associate his jealousy with it being a problem or related to this lawsuit. It was just jealousy for, a toxic relationship. Versus the prosecutor was like, no, it wasn't jealousy when he dragged her around by her hair in Jamaica for allegedly taking too long to get dressed. That's more so an example of force, coercion, of why she may not have felt she could just so simply get away. All right, that's what they're getting at. Any recross? Next witness? No, there's no recross. Next witness is David James, y'all. David James, he's on the what they call that I have. He's on the thumbnail that I put up. He looks like a tall white boy who is, I don't know, now he's probably in his 30s, but a taller white boy and kind of goofy looking. And it says, why are you here? He said, I've been subpoenaed. In other words, I don't want to be here. Were you Mr. Combs' personal assistant? He's from 2007 to 2009. Who is that in this photo? That's David James. That's yourself. Yes. I went to college in Michigan. Later, I faxed my resume to Bad Boy. Where was the interview? 1710 Broadway. Who did you meet? Tommy, his sister Keisha, and others. Oh, that's important. Sister Keisha means he got his family involved in this enterprise too. It also makes a lot of sense that family members are definitely going to help you cover up your dirt. All right. They say, how did they test you? They gave me 40 appointments and asked me to make a schedule. You had to know, for example, what time a particular show on Hot 97 came on. What did Mr. Combs ask you? Talking about in his interview for the job. He said to make a spreadsheet for Miami. I said, I know his food and restaurant preferences. He asked me why I'd make a good assistant. I said, can't stop, won't stop. I got the job. Can't stop, won't stop. I get the job. Literally, he said, I need y'all to see what this boy looked like. Okay. I need you to see what he looked like so that you can understand why that response, especially from a big, goofy looking white boy, is hilarious. Hold on. Hold on. I got a picture for you. Come on. We need David James. I got to give you the picture. It's on the thumbnail, but where? Dang it. Let's see if I can put it right here. I got him on my, can't stop, won't stop. He said, why would you make a good assistant? He said, can't stop, won't stop. I need you to see what he looked like. Y'all have to see what this boy looks like because he's kind of goofy looking. Here we go. All right, I'll just put this back up. There we go. Oh, hold on. Hold on. This is him. Can't stop, won't stop. There we go. Can't stop, won't stop. That's what he looks like. It's about control. He's okay with her dealing with the people that he chooses. Cassie was never a flop. If you're behind on your car payments or mortgage, call Tony. He will file a lawsuit for you in 24 hours. Yeah, no, we're going to not do that. There we go. All right, but this is can't stop, won't stop. So this is what David James looks like. So I just want you to know the context when I'm just shocked that was his response at the job interview, but clearly he got the job. Did he have others, as in other assistants? He said, Miss Robles, Mr. Barber, others. What would you do as an assistant? Bad Boy to 5, then out to work at Bad Boy until 5 p.m., then out to dinner, then to the studio until 3 a.m. We'd get a call time at the end of the night for the next day. Did you travel with Mr. Combs as well? Yes. Who were the security staff? D-Rock, Bonds, Uncle Polly. You work 20 hours a day? Yes. Security did too. Okay, that doesn't sound like forced labor. So let's see what the point of his testimony is going to be. It says, what did security staff tell you? To stay in my lane. Who said that? Bon, Uncle Polly, focusing on his personal chef. Who is this? And he said, Chef Jordan Atkinson. Let me see if I can find that. Jordan Atkinson. Hold on. Jordan. Hold on. I want to see if I can put her up. Jordan Atkinson. She is a chef. Hold on. Oh, this might be her. Hold on LinkedIn. Let's see. Hold on. Nope, she ain't got no picture up. So that probably actually is her. She said, y'all not about to come stalk me. Jordan. This might be her. Hold on. Chef Jordan. I think this might be her. I don't know. Pretty girl, but let me see if I could. Yeah, let me see. This might be her. We'll see. This is her talking to podcast. Let me see. She looks really pretty. But yeah, we'll see. Okay, so Chef Jordan is who they're referring to. Here we go. It says, okay. Focusing on his personal chef. Who is this? Chef Jordan. Did Mr. Combe have girlfriends then? Kim Porter, Sarah, Tara, Yana, and Cassie. Oh, shoot, y'all. It's a bunch of them. Sarah, Kara. Yeah, it sounds like that. Don't this sound like that? What they call that guy? DMX song where DMX was like naming all the girls in the world. All right. So listen, wait. This is fascinating, y'all. Hold up. Notice Kim Porter and Sarah. Sarah is the mother to Chance. The other daughter, the twins have the sister. They're all the same age. Well, Sarah and Kim Porter were allegedly friends. So allegedly, Kim Porter was especially hurt when she found out that Diddy was also going to be having another child the same age as hers. And she was hot. She was hurt, not just because he was cheating, but even more so because he was cheating with somebody she considered her friend. Sarah is also well known in the industry. Not only is she a beautiful woman, but she previously dated Tupac. And we already know Diddy's issue with Tupac. So it felt great for him to be able to also knock down Tupac's old lady. All right. Sarah, he said, his girlfriends included Kim Porter, Sarah, Tara, Yana, and Cassie. What was your first conversation with Cassie? We were on Star Island. Kerry Morgan was there too. Cassie said, this lifestyle is crazy. I asked her, why don't you leave? She said, Sean controls my life, my music. He pays for my apartment. Next conversation. It was about their music. Hold on. Remember, I talked about this in the morning testimony. He controls my life. Well, now we see why they wanted to call David James, among others. Because David is saying, he controls my life. Sean controls my life. That's critical. It could be for forced labor and or the S trafficking, right? But also, we got to keep in mind, he controls my life and my music. He pays for my apartment. So the jury's going to have to decide, is she staying because she liked the lifestyle despite the DV, despite the physical abuse? Or was it this level of ST coercion? Because it could be a combo of both. But in order for them to get to the reasonable doubt that they need for the ST, the statements where she talks about, well, he pays for all my stuff, that's difficult. However, we have to keep in mind, by him controlling her music, he controls her money, her ability to make money, at least from music. All right. Next, she says, it was about her. He says the next conversation he said he had was about her music, but the album never came out. Did you overhear a conversation? He said, yes. Mr. Combs said, Kim is my queen out in LA with my family. He said, I have Cassie right where I want her. She is young and moldable. Woo! We're going to go over that again. Sounds like he said what we were all thinking. He said, Mr. Combs acknowledged, Kim is my queen out in LA with my family. In other words, he gave Kim the life of a wife for the most part. He just wouldn't marry her. He didn't want to marry anybody, probably because he didn't want to have to one day split his fortune, because he knew one day Kim was going to be through with him as she was, and then he'd have to get a divorce. He said, Kim was my life with my family. I have Cassie right where I want her. She is young and moldable. That sounds like most men who do DV, right? They think, I got this one, I'm going to run her. The prosecutor said, Your Honor, how much longer do we want to go? This would be a good place to break. We'll break for the day. All right, so that was, there we go, the break. Oh, and then they said, wait, there is more. Hold on. There is more. Defense attorney Agnifilo says, MDC Brooklyn makes us end VCT calls at 6 p.m. We need more. Ending at 3 p.m. helps. If you can extend it, judge, put a letter on the docket. VCT calls, I'm pretty sure the VCT calls are probably the calls between the lawyer and their client that they do virtually or whatever to be able to prep for the next day. So it sounds like they're just not complaining, which is valid. They're saying they need more time to prep so that ending the court days at 3 o'clock gives them more time, because that'll give them 3 hours after trial, give or take, to prep for the next day. Judge said, put in a letter. Yeah, and they did so. All right, let me see. Here we go. And then we got, hold on. Yes, guys, let's get those likes up, guys. Let me hit that subscribe. It says that tracks. It says Diddy is a whole mess. So today, the testimony that we've received, hold on, let me see if there's any helpful updates from the Associated Press. Let's see. Hold on. They give us any more in CNN. Hold on. They give us any more. Here we go, the latest. Combs' ex-assistant, here we are. Oh, this is annoying me. Whatever. Sorry. Leave me alone. All right. It's just in there. Hold on, guys. You can go right back to it. Here we are. It says Combs' former assistant. Why is this here? Make this go away. I'm sorry, guys. This is very annoying. There we go. I'm going to make it a little bigger. But Combs' former assistant, according to CNN, we're going to do this play-by-play. Wait. Was this the CNN one? Yeah, it is. His ex-assistant says Ventura was happy about working on an album. David James, an assistant for Diddy, recalled a second conversation he had with Cassie when they shared a cab to the Sundance Film Festival. Ventura was super happy about an album she was working on, which is supposed to be her second album. I don't remember that album coming out, he testified. Right, because only one came out. He also described a time when a business associate asked Combs about Kim Porter and Ventura. Combs said Porter was doing well and described her as, quote, his queen. When Combs talked about Ventura, he said he described her as moldable. I got her right where I want her. She's young, Combs said, according to James. The jury's been dismissed for the day. It says the jury has been dismissed for the day. David James will continue testifying tomorrow. Prosecutors indicated their first round of questions for James should take an hour or less. An escort, Sheree Hayes, is expected to testify next, followed by Regina Ventura, Cassie's mom. A former professional chef, Tashawn Diddy Combs, and a law enforcement officer are also expected to be called soon. I believe it's the chef that we just talked about, Jordan Atkinson. That chef is likely going to testify to forced labor. And as we kind of sum this up, I'm going to remind you, we're going to go back over what, according to the indictment, related to RICO, what offenses do we think have been proved so far? And which ones are we still waiting on? And which one do we think there ain't going to be no evidence of? So it says the jury's been dismissed. It says, we got the escort, Sheree Hayes. We've got Cassie's mama. Cassie's mama is just going to reinforce the lack of how voluntary it was. She's probably going to talk about the level of control, how he controlled her money, her albums, da-da-da-da-da. It says Judge Subrahimian said he'd like to talk about keeping the jury a bit later than 3 for this week. Prosecutors said their case is running right on time, and defense attorney Mark said defense appreciates the 3 o'clock adjournment because it gives them more time to prepare with Combs. The lawyers agreed to revisit the schedule on Thursday and see if they're on track. I think the prosecution's goal is, to be done with this case by 4th of July. That would be the 2-month mark. It says David James, the assistant, says, I can't get out. Ex-assistant recalls Cassie saying about early times in the relationship. He said James, who was an assistant to Diddy, testified that he was with Combs in Miami when he first met her. Combs rented a yacht and they partied all weekend. He said he recalled Combs saying he wanted to impress Ventura that weekend. Remember, this is from 07 to 09, at the very beginning of their relationship. James said he and Ventura didn't speak frequently, but he recalled 2 specific conversations he had with her. While in Miami, sometime within the first year of working for Combs, James said he was standing with Ventura on a dock on Star Island. Man, this lifestyle is crazy, James recalled Ventura saying. He agreed and suggested that she leave. Oh, she meant to like, as opposed to like crazy amazing, like literally it is crazy. She said, I can't get out, she told him. She told him that Combs controlled her career, paid for her apartment, and gave her an allowance. I just didn't think that she could easily leave, he testified. Ventura testified she signed a contract with Combs Bad Boy in 06, and she and Combs struck up a platonic relationship initially. After a boat party in Miami, their relationship became more intimate, she testified. They first began dating around 07 and split in 18. Today, this is the summary. Prosecutors focus on Combs' control over Ventura to support the S trafficking charges, legal experts say. Prosecutors are continuing to focus on Diddy Combs' control over Cassie as they aim to solidify the S trafficking charges against him. Legal analyst says it all goes back to the trafficking. We already heard from Ventura. I'm going to disagree with this, but I'm going to read this and then I'm going to tell you my disagreement and give you that breakdown as we wrap it on up. It says, we already heard from Cassie that she was a recording artist, signed a contract with Combs, and then ultimately became a S worker with him. And that means when you look at those charges of S trafficking, it's force, coercion, violence. That's why talking about the violence and the level of control continues to solidify those specific charges against Combs. Now, remember, he's charged with S trafficking for 2 separate people. So far, we've only heard testimony pertaining to him and Cassie. Then there's also victim 2. Hold on. Diddy, what is victim 2's? Hold on. I think victim 2 might be going by Mia, the alias Mia. She's going by Jane. She's a single mother. Victim 2 is a single mother, met Combs in 2020, developed a relationship with him, and then that person is going to say she participated in the FOs and experienced violence and threats from him too. So, giving you just my summary. Hold on, let me pull this down. When I spoke about this earlier, what the hell? Hold on. Yeah, it's a whole mess. Here we go. Here we are. So when I spoke of this earlier, what is wrong? Here we go. Where it's not letting me see. What the hell? Okay, there you go. Oh, there we go. So here's what's basically been presented for today. What they attempted to focus on S trafficking and testimony that elicits the level of force and control, etc. So in the morning we had Dawn, she concluded her testimony. Then we had Kerry Morgan, Cassie's BFF. Then we had David James, who was the assistant to Diddy. Tomorrow there's supposed to be some additionals. There's going to be, I believe, a bit more from David James, but then there's also supposed to be, they said it was Sharia Haynes, who was apparently an S worker. It sounds like a female one. Cassie's mama, and a few others. So Gene Deal was in the courtroom, but apparently he did not testify. But here's what I want you guys to take away and just stay focused on. Let's go over as we get ready to wrap. What do we think? What facts, what evidence, what testimony do we think supported what's actually in the indictment? Okay. Because nobody cared. All that stuff, I get it. The S trafficking, all of that. If it's not in the indictment, who cares? Thank you for being a new member. Mind y'all's. I know that's right. Mind y'all's business. Also, Baby Doll's mom. Thank you for joining. Also, for members, y'all, if you're joining at the upper level, these documents that I be putting on the screen, the court documents, I actually upload them into a Google folder and give you guys access to them so that you can all see them. Just look for a community post on the community wall, and I'll provide that updated link. FR, thank you for the super sticker as well. So listen, I'm going to go over what, again, what is the racketeering? So here it's super simple. We already know it's called Sean Combs Enterprises, right? So we know it's an enterprise. All they have to add and show is that sometimes, not even all the time, sometimes Diddy directs them to do stuff they have no business. Diddy directs them to do things that are illegal. That simple, okay? And then of the illegal things, they only have to show 2 of the following 8. Watch this. Watch this. 2 of the 8, and that they occurred within 10 years of each other. 2 of the 8. That's it. That's it. Here we are. All right, which page is this? 10. All right, so what are the 8 that they get to choose from? Actually, this is written because they believe, the prosecution believes they have evidence of all of it. I'm going to tell you which ones I think we've seen and which ones we haven't. So they go from their kidnapping, again, kidnapping, arson, bribery, tampering with a witness, forced labor, trafficking, transportation for prostitutas, and then possession with intent to distribute, or just distribution of narcotics, right? A third count here that I think has been proven already, right, is transportation for prostitutas. All you have to show there is that you paid these male hookers, female hookers, whatever they were. You paid these hookers and that they slept with you, Diddy, the 3 of you, whatever, in at least 2 states. They did that in day 1. That was covered. So given that we already have that, they only have to prove one more thing happened within 10 years of those FOs. Okay. And those FOs went from, I think they said 09 all the way into 18. So number 1, kidnapping. We haven't seen evidence of that, but that's supposed to come. The arson is supposed to be Kid Cudi. Day 1, we saw bribery. Bribery is what happened with the hotel. Day 1, we saw tampering with the witness. The security guard of the hotel was a witness. He was tampered with when they offered him that money. The hotel worker actually took that money in exchange for never being able to speak about what happened. That again is tampering with the witness. Then number 3, we've seen discussions, I'll say, of forced labor. There was a lot more that the defense wanted Dawn to be able to talk about that she couldn't. But Dawn's testimony, I went over it this morning and I've read additional articles that went deeper into it. And what Dawn talked about quite a bit was that substances would be everywhere and would be given to him. There was some guy named One Stop who would go out and who would get them, bring them back and give it to them. That they were encouraged to take them to then be able to stay up and practice and do rehearsals, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Dawn said she would receive them, but she wouldn't take them. So she'd act like she was going to do them, but not. That is a component of forced labor. So forced labor, if you are forcing someone to take a substance in order to work longer, absolutely, that is forced labor. That's why it's a problem. That's why it's a problem. You're also probably going to hear Lorianne Gibson testify when she comes up that Lorianne Gibson witnessed him or the enterprise giving substances to performers so that they could practice and they could stay up later in the studio. Also, there was a time during the testimony when the prosecution was trying to elicit testimony about how she reached out to Diddy related to Lorianne Gibson, and the other side said objection, and it was overruled. Here's what she was getting at. Ultimately, she was able to testify to this. What she said, Dawn said that she wanted to work with Lorianne. But when she reached out to Lorianne said, talk with Diddy so that, and if Diddy says it's fine, I'll work with you. That was key. Because I said this morning, I was like, they need strong testimony from Dawn that would do a better job of showing that Diddy had power over Dawn's career, and that she continued to stay in touch with him, because if she ever pissed him off, then he would block her ability to record, to be on remixes, to do anything. Sure enough, earlier in the morning, she did. She was able to testify just to that. She would say she would try to kind of keep her distance from him. He would FaceTime her. If he would call her repeatedly. If she did not respond, he would get angry. So she would have to answer his calls and so forth. Otherwise, he would get upset and block her business. Again, that has to do with the coercion, with the power of the RICO entity. If anybody has ever been blackballed, and I hope you haven't, from a job, then you know what it's like, where you got to keep one person satisfied so that they're not blocking your other gigs. And it happens in music all the time. So we got forced labor, S trafficking. I'm going to go ahead and put S trafficking to the side because at this point, I think a jury can go either way that this was DV or S trafficking. So what I'm saying is even they don't have to prove S trafficking to prove RICO. As long as they prove two of these, they prove bribery, they prove tampering with a witness, they have some evidence of forced labor. I don't know if you guys feel persuaded by that. Let me know how you feel about the forced labor so far. And then prostitution, transportation for prostitutas. I think we've got good evidence of that so far. It was pretty clear cut. That's easy to prove. And then multiple offenses, it says, involving possession with intent to distribute or simply distribution of narcotics, of substances, controlled substances. They've done that. That has been very clear. Y'all, that's it. If they prove two of those, they've proven RICO. That's why so many of us lawyers are saying it looks like they've proven what needs to be proven for RICO. Now, the more that they nail it down, that's going to allow a jury to find him guilty of more of these underlying offenses, but also that's going to increase the likelihood of a life sentence. And a large part of what Cassie's testimony was there to do was to put enough fear in the jury to feel that this man is so powerful that if y'all let him out, he's wreaking havoc. He's got so much money. He's got so much resources. None of these people who testify will be okay because he knows how to go and find somebody. And he knows how to send his team out to find somebody. It says Don was still messing with Diddy after the alleged threats. Well, that happened. If I'm a juror, they don't have enough right now. Cassie isn't enough for me. So yeah, when I did this analysis, I'm not even including the S trafficking. But the other items under the law, they have presented enough where it has satisfied what has to be proved from RICO because they've shown bribery, transportation for prostitution, tampering with a witness, and arguably, possibly, distribution of narcotics. Remember, you just have to distribute them. You just have to literally give them out at a party in 2 different cities. That's what makes it federal. Give them out at a party. Give them out at a party. They've done that. There was testimony for that. And then forced labor is it's a bit lighter. It says kangaroo court so far. We shall see. Send your cash apps, please. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the super chats as well. Mina says, and y'all hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe. We're going to try to see if we can get to 55,000. 55,000. It says, I can't lie. The prosecution case seems a little fragile right now. Maybe I'm just dumb, but it's day 6 of a 2-month trial. We can't make judgments yet. Well, Mina, do you feel like they've shown the prostitution? And do you feel like they proved up the bribery? The bribery, at least so far, was related to the hotel, the $100,000 payment to the hotel for Cassie's, for making the video disappear. I think they did a good job of proving that up too, as well, because in part of it, I believe was the defense's fault. Here's why. When Cassie was on the stand, it was the defense that brought up the fact that the hotel settled with Cassie. Cassie didn't bring that up. The defense did. And the reason why that matters is because it further substantiates that it was successful bribery. There is no way a hotel would pay somebody $10 million if they didn't do something wrong. And what they did wrong is that one of their workers took a $100,000 bribe to make Cassie's video go away of that attack. And by it going away, she was never able to go to the cops and get justice because the statute of limitations expired. That statute of limitations expired May of 2021. And because they made it disappear, she can never, ever, she can't even sue for domestic violence there for DV. So while the defense is like, this is DV, the reason defense is doing that is the statute of limitations for DV has expired. So if the jury finds it's DV, he gets off because it's not a charge they can choose. It says the S trafficking in the hotel for 4 days with the workers, $9,000 they think he had for that Starbucks. The room's filthy with blood, urine, and foul smell. Ooh, yeah, that did happen. Yeah, I think it was a successful bribery. And so if Diddy's team had not asked about the 10 million, there could and confirmed that she was paid. Didn't nobody know she was paid except for me. I knew. I knew that there was no way her civil lawyers were going to get 20 million from Diddy and not go for the hotel too. The hotel is easy smeezy. Y'all see, she got that 10 million from the hotel without even filing a lawsuit. I need y'all to understand that. She didn't even have to file a lawsuit. That's how guilty they knew they were. You know how hard it is to get a publicly traded company to hand you $10 million without a lawsuit? It was because if that had gotten out, their stock price would have gone down. People would have been marching. The Me Too movement, the this, the that. They would have get blackballed like Target. People would not, because Intercontinental owns Holiday Inn. They own a whole bunch. It was their whole corporate entity. IHG is what it's called, is my understanding. IHG would have been screwed. Their shareholders would have been pissed at them. It says, yeah, exactly. That was a red flag for me. Thank you. Yes, Sasha. Yes. Help them be mindful of the words. It says, I agree with Mina. Exactly. That was a red flag. The facts called her as a witness to prove their case. Yes. The prostitution. All right. I can get with that, Lorraine, that you feel confident prostitution was shown. And prostitution is my understanding. The cap on prostitution is 10 years. Now, I'll tell you this. I do believe, let's say hypothetically, he gets off on the S trafficking, but they get him on the prostitutas. I say that for YouTube purposes. I do believe that what judges generally do in this situation, if a judge feels like he's done all these bad things, the judge is going to give him the max, which would be 10 years. So he's facing a minimum of 10 years. I think he would get all 10 of them if that's what it is. However, I also think that if the only thing he's found guilty of is hookers, you better believe the man in the White House, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want my video to be messed up for monetization. The man in the White House is going to pardon him. I would firmly believe the man in the White House would pardon him if he's only found guilty of having some hookers. And even though half of them are male hookers, and gets 10 years because he's the man that loves hookers. Remember, when he came into office or when he won the election, Obama had a whole, they call it a dossier. It was Russia had evidence of him being in a hotel with hookers over in Russia, in Moscow, at a hotel, and getting urinated on by the hookers and urinating. So I say that to say, unfortunately, I don't even like thinking about it. But yes, what about the 3 guns without a serial number? Those go to 3 guns without a serial number. Good questions, y'all. Those go to the mode and method of the enterprise. That is like, to have, and that it's a criminal enterprise, because we know it's an enterprise, but they need to provide evidence that it is an enterprise that performs criminal things. So they don't even have to use them. But the fact that they have those are only kept for bad purposes, right? To effectuate criminal things or to scare people and frighten people. Is Lauren taking the stand? Which Lauren? Oh, Lauren, you mean Lorianne Gibson? Yes, Lorianne is. Oh, Takesha said, Orange Man won't pardon anybody that doesn't look like him. That could be, I think what he likes, though, the Orange Man, he loves shock. He loves power. For him, what he likes about pardons is the power a pardon gives him to say, y'all had a whole trial. I don't care. Boom, erased. None of that matters because I said so. So I think, and it's alleged that Diddy has already hired a specific team to start working on a pardon. I said that. I said, if that was my client, I was like, okay, we got a legal team and we got your pardon team. It said, notice Diddy isn't snitching on anyone that is as dirty as him. Well, he's not. We don't know if he's snitching, but he's not talking at all because they're not going to call him to the stand. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. So Coco Mellon says Cassie is a co-conspirator. Here's the thing. You can be a co-conspirator and also a victim of other elements. So you could be a co-conspirator and then the person that the two of you are robbing a bank, that person could take out their pow and hit you in the face. So that could be true, but it doesn't change the fact that those were still prostitutes because the prostitution claim don't have nothing to do with Cassie as a victim. The bribery claim does relate to her, but she didn't have anything to do with the bribery. Do y'all think they proved bribery? Let me know in the chat. Put a 1 if you think, yes, they proved bribery. Hold on. I'm going to do this on YouTube. And put a 2 if you think, nah, I need to hear some more. Hold on. I want to know this. I need to hear this. I'm going to do a poll. I need to know, do you guys think that they proved bribery? I'm going to put this up because I really want to know what your thought is. I mean, I thought it was pretty clear cut, because here's the advantage that they have regarding bribery. Why does my screen look like this? Sorry, guys. The advantage they have on the bribery, and yes, y'all, this is Diddy's jail cell. The advantage that they have on the bribery is simply the fact that we knew about the video and that the video went missing. We've known about that since the civil case was filed. That was one of her main claims in the civil case. And then when the video mysteriously came about, right? When the video mysteriously became public, rather. Here we are. Let me do this poll. When it mysteriously became public, let's see. That's when everyone was like, hold on. All right. Do you think they have proven bribery related to the hotel? Okay. Now let me see. Also, let me know your questions in the chat. We got a yes and we got a no. All right. I want to know your thoughts. One. All right. That one. Y'all, I'm so tired. I don't even remember what the question was where y'all are giving me the ones. The one is the bribery. Okay. The bribery. Money played a big part in Diddy's corruption. Right. Who's that picture of? Oh, this is a picture of David James, his assistant, Diddy's assistant that took the stand today. All right. That's him. And I put it up because I wanted y'all to see he's kind of corny looking. He's also on the thumbnail, but I wanted you to say he was kind of corny looking because I thought it was funny that when they asked him on the stand how he got the job, he said he answered a bunch of questions. And then they asked him, well, what makes you think that you're going to be good in this role? And he said, here is it. He said, can't stop, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. And he got the job. Can't stop, won't stop. I guess. David James was his name. Can't stop, won't stop. And he got the job. So he was Diddy's personal assistant from 2007 to 2009, and he outlined his tasks. He looked like he would flip. He looked like he would tell all the business. He also looks like he has moved on to a life where he does whatever. He looked like he sells life insurance to people who don't want it, and he calls you unsolicited on your work phone and stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about? One of those people. So that is David James. Yes. Says, thank God y'all aren't lawyers. Oh boy. RICO for a one-man organization. Okay, I got to ask you guys about this. Please let me know in the chat. What makes you feel it's a one-man organization? I'm not understanding that. What makes you feel, and I'll drop the link. So if you guys want to call in, you just click the link. But what makes you feel it's a one-man organization? I'm confused by that, but I do see a lot of people say that because it's everybody's snitching. Right, this says, hold on, are you ready? It says, in my opinion, when he started giving back publishing, he was bribing those artists. Oh, now that's an interesting analysis. When he was bribing them when he gave back publishing, because he was requiring a non-disclosure in exchange for getting your publishing back. So in other words, you can't talk about what you've seen. Now, we all know, now, those of you who've been following my channel for a while, you know there's no non-disclosure that prevents you from discussing a crime. So you need to, hey, look, you call my Mr. Simone, I got this non-disclosure, but my job, my boss, he did all kind of stuff. He sexual harassed people. He do this, he do that. Look, even though sexual harassment is a civil crime, it's a crime. So I'm like, take your money and then we're going to tell it. Take your money and then tell it. Okay. But I'll walk you through how to tell it properly. Someone also, what kind of lawyer am I? Good question. If I don't know I know what RICO is. That's why I broke it down. Yeah. So I'm a civil attorney. I've stated before in my videos, I was actually the first attorney that sued R. Kelly under civil law, under the same laws that are now being used. Is a prior version, that was 2018, that was being used to obtain justice for some of R. Kelly's victims. But yes, so I've been doing this for a while. And I do know what RICO is. I'm thinking that you may not. But to say, hold on, you might be referring to, I had put up earlier on the screen, someone has said, how is there RICO for a one-man organization? The reason I asked that question is because what makes you feel, my question is, what makes you feel this is a one-man organization? They've told you he had someone pay $100,000 to make the video go away. You think Diddy knocked on that person's door and said, here you go, here's $100,000? Absolutely not. He instructed someone else. The substances that were distributed at the FO. You think Diddy got on the phone and called a local drug dealer and says, hi, Mr. Drug Dealer. Okay, we're having a sex party. I'm going to need you to bring us your good stuff this week. No, he had staff do that. Do you think Diddy personally, no, we heard stories about him whooping on Cassie and her getting out of the vehicle and running, and then him instructing security, go back and get her, bring her back to me so he could do more damage. We heard about how she would run away from him after being hurt, and then he'd instruct his staff to call her 50 times, find where she is, go and get her, put her in a different hotel where she has to hide out and cannot leave until she's healed and is no longer showing bruises. In addition, she testified he would take her cell phone, passport, and her car keys. So I'm not understanding. Oh, you're saying, okay, it's one person charge because that's how they choose to do it. It doesn't mean, okay, how can he be the only one charged with conspiracy? What I'm saying is, what makes you think he's the only one charged with conspiracy? Doesn't it take more than one person to conspire with? Just because you're only seeing that he is charged with it doesn't mean other people aren't charged with it. So now I'm understanding the question a little better. Yeah, just because you're only aware of Diddy. So what happens is they have something called sealed indictments. What they're doing here is the other people who have been charged as co-conspirators, their indictments are likely still sealed. Why? Because part of what he's being charged with is tampering with witnesses. Tampering with witnesses, obstruction of justice, making evidence and people go away. So yeah, it would make sense that they're going to elicit the necessary testimony regarding him and what he's done first, and subsequent to that, charge the other people. I don't know if you've ever seen certain group killings or whatever. A lot of times they will have the lesser people testify on behalf to get to whoever was the main person who came up with the idea to commit, the unaliving, for example. And generally, you have the main person that you're trying to get, you have their trial go first. You have it go first. Because if you don't do that, you run the risk of giving a deal to someone to help you get to Diddy, and then that person pulling a Kelsey. In other words, when that person takes the stand, they forget everything and so forth because they're able to take the stand before you've gotten to Diddy, and Diddy could potentially get to them. So instead, you want them to go first. You want them to go first so that you have the testimony that's required. There we go. You know that you have the testimony that's required, and then you can give them whatever deal. So, for example, one of the people allegedly is Harvey Pierre. Harvey Pierre's attorneys have probably been reached out to and contacted. They were probably asked, would you sit down with the feds and have a conversation? They actually do something that's called a proffer. So thank you to whoever said, I'm not a real lawyer. I love that. Oh, sorry. Here's a call-in link. Forgive my goofy butt. Hold on. There's a call-in link. Hold on. You don't have to show your face, but you can. Here, there it is. Hold on. I'm going to pin it. What? Y'all are going fast in this chat. Where the hell did it go? Because the government doesn't appear to be charging any co-conspirators. Okay. No, I appreciate you clarifying that. So yeah, it's because of the order that you're supposed to do it in. So I understand. See, that's why I be talking to y'all, non-lawyers, because sometimes we just take certain things for granted because it's something that we know and we've known for decades as lawyers, right? So I don't know if that makes sense to you guys. The reason other people aren't charged is because they probably have already been indicted. The indictments are sealed. They are required first to testify on behalf of the prosecution. And based on their ability their willingness to cooperate is going to depend on what sentence the government is going to recommend for them. You can't recommend a sentence for cooperation without the cooperation. You got to get that. Does that make a little more sense? Yeah, they're just at the beginning of this trial too. All right, good. I got Sky. But y'all tell me in the chat. So the gist of it, the reason it looks like a one-man RICO is they're waiting for people to cooperate. You got to cooperate first so they can decide what to offer you for being there cooperating. Here we go. All right. So let's see. Let me put this down. All right, Sky, you ready? Sky Life, what are your thoughts? If you guys want to, you have a call and you do not have to turn your camera on. That's right.
Okay, I just want to say hello and I love you. Thank
Hey.
you for being objective in your commentary. Okay, so I don't want everybody to throw eggs at me, but I am R. Kelly supporter. But
okay.
Somebody said, and I still love you now.
That's okay. That's okay. I understand.
Your question was about the one-man RICO. Why do we feel it's a one-man RICO? R. Kelly's case, he was not, he had the same one-man charge. His co-Ds were not charged due to prosecutorial discretion. And I saw somebody in the chat say, ask him about who else was charged in the R. Kelly case. Nobody else was.
Right.
And so that makes him be like the blueprint for P. Diddy, because in P. Diddy,
you are right.
They're not charging him, but I don't know if it's due to prosecutorial discretion either.
You are right. Here's why, because they cooperated. If they had not, then they would have gotten charged. That's why you get the cooperation first. But you hang that threat over their head, baby. You hang the threat over their head and say, if you don't cooperate, you too. Because what they do is they tell you, look, you could be a witness or a co-conspirator, depending on how you participate, especially where there are tampering with witness, obstruction of justice type of allegations, which both of them have. If you don't remember, back in like the first R. Kelly state trial, he got off because the witness disappeared. Correct. She pulled a Gina, a victim number 3, left the country and no one knew what happened.
Correct.
There you go. So there is a chance that we won't see other people after this be charged. There is certainly a chance of that, but that will be all contingent upon whether or not they cooperate. But this is also, that's a good argument for the defense to make, not only in cross-examination, but you better believe the defense is going to hammer that in closing. Who are they co-conspiring? But I believe they definitely went to people like KK, that person, said, girl, you next. The security, security for sure, because the security, part of what they did is they would prevent people from leaving, or they would stand back while he was whooping up on people and not be security.
Well, I'm glad that they're now bringing up the other people like the assistants, because they also in the other Nikhil's trial, they had like people who were supposed to be part of the enterprise. So I'm assuming that assistant is like part of the enterprise members. So
yeah, and anyone. So the enterprise is definitely anyone who works for him that executes the bad deeds. That is an enterprise member. So I say that to say, I understand why. Thank you guys for clarifying. I get why people are like, why is this a one-man RICO? What I was trying to say, every single one of the workers is considered a participant in RICO. Like you said, though, they just have not been charged. So that makes sense. This is Diddy. Thank you so much for the super chat. Just like Candy says, Diddy thinks he is Nino Brown. Nino Brown in New Jack City. If anyone else wants to come up, we got the link there. Do you feel of those? Did you get to see where I put the indictment up and I read off the different things that they could prove to get to RICO?
You're asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you.
I did see that.
Yes. Were there any of them where you feel like you've seen evidence of it so far?
Well, the 5 that you listed, I believe they were all met. I have no doubt that the RICO has been met. I mean, and only by being familiar with the other case. The RICO has been met. However, I do feel there is a lot of reasonable doubt. And like I put in your chat, I believe that the jurors, they're lay people. They're like me. We don't have a legal mind. And right. I just don't feel, I feel he has one, because he only needs one, right?
Say that again.
He only needs one person, one juror to say.
That's right. He only needs one juror.
Okay. I think he might have one, because it might be one little me in that in the jury.
Well, which of the things would you feel right now? Would you be like, no? Because you referenced that you thought that about 3 or 4 of the RICO things had been proven. So if that's the case, then they have to find him guilty of RICO.
But sometimes jurors kind of do what they want to do. They don't know.
That is true. And you know what? And that's exactly why they took so long picking the jury, and they started with the pool of like 500 or 700. I think it was 700 people. Is their hope was to, and again, if you guys want to, I pinned, if you're on YouTube, I pinned, it's at the top of the chat. Click that link if you want to join and give me your comments. But the thought was that the hope was that they would get someone who could follow the law no matter how they felt inside, based on the facts. And so I think that, yeah, we got over 2,600 in the chat, but we only got 700 likes. Hit that like, y'all, and hit that subscribe. It says D-Rock is deceased. Thank you for that clarification, because I sure was wondering. D-Rock is deceased. Okay, we got that. All right. Yeah, I think so. Okay, so would you feel, if you were on the jury, would you feel comfortable convicting him of the prostitution?
No, because
Okay.
my thing is with that is I don't see how a sex worker, I'm sorry, an ex worker is, that's their job.
Yes.
An ex. But in her, I feel like her testimony was, she recanted her testimony and she was looking like a participant.
Okay, so let's take her out, right?
Okay.
They also had day one, they had David, somebody Phillips, I forget his name, but he was a male S worker. He testified to meeting up with them in like 13 different cities and getting paid. He talked about getting paid. It would vary from $0 if you couldn't get it up to $6,000 some dollars.
Yes, you're right.
You feel
he makes it met?
So yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I'm like, even if we take out Cassie's testimony, right? If we say, she's not reliable, I feel like that first guy, he did a good job. And then there's supposed to be more S workers that are going to be taking the stand. So tomorrow is going to be someone named Shayla, because really all they have to prove is they were paid to be intimate and that it happened in at least 2 states.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the bribery?
I came late today for the bribery.
Okay, no problem.
What you said about the her getting that reward shows that there was some wrongdoing with the hotel. So I think I don't know if that's brought into the case.
Yeah, that would be the bribery.
Okay.
Yeah, the bribery was making that video disappear and offering the money to the hotel worker. How do you get the link to have the chat? Yeah, well, the link is, if you're on YouTube, go to the chat. So you should hit the chat box, and then it's pinned. So it's the first link of all of the links in the chat, like in the chat box. So that should let you do it. So in other words, if you're looking at it on your phone, or even, if you're looking at it on your phone, then you're going to hit the little icon to make the chat pop up. And then at the very top, the first one should be that link. You guys, the line's open. Yeah, let me know if you guys had any other questions. And I appreciate hearing like from people like yourself, because y'all are true members of the jury and you guys are able to think about it as like a regular lay person. But I do think that, I think that what I hear you saying and what other people have been saying is that basically, as far as the testimony goes, it sounds like they need to start focusing, the prosecution start focusing more on what are things that can be proven up, even if you don't believe Cassie.
Correct.
So what can be proven even without Cassie's testimony?
Correct.
And those are the ones that I could see bring it home. Wait, so you can pay to play, but you just can't transport. That's right. Yeah, out of state. Correct. Well, no, what it is it's still a problem. It's not a federal problem. It's not a federal crime. So if you keep it with one state, then whatever state you're in, Georgia or whatever, and it's usually a misdemeanor, honestly. So if you stay in one state, you're good to go. Just don't take your hooker to Miami. Keep your Miami hooker in Miami and then get your Houston hooker in Houston. See? Don't let them go nowhere. Let them be where they at. Don't let them go nowhere. Yes. So if anybody else wants to click that link, thank you so much, Skylife. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Yeah. And I appreciate as well, guys. I want to hear contrary opinions, so I'm not going to, I was just very confused. Well, we're like, the guy was like, what kind of lawyer doesn't know what RICO is? I know what RICO is. What I'm saying, so hit the StreamYard link. You don't have to show your face. I know what RICO is. What I'm saying is I wasn't understanding previously why people were thinking it was a one man, but what you're saying is only one man has been charged. Yeah, somebody said, yeah. Yeah, if you have a hooker in one state, it's just prostitution. That's a state offense, kind of like with DV. right? You hurt somebody in your state, you assault them in your state. That's a state related offense. It's not federal. Here, they're only able to go over the federal stuff. Yes, don't let your hooker travel. Do not buy your hooker a Spirit Airlines flight, okay, or Frontier for that matter. Or if you really want spoiler, like American or Delta, don't do that. Don't do that. Mm-mm. It says, wasn't Tekashi 6ix9ine dismissed from a racketeering charge? Yes. Do you know why he was dismissed? You know why he's dismissed? Because he cooperated. See? He cooperated. So that's another example of what I'm talking about. We talked about earlier, someone had made the post. So let me know again if anybody else wants to hop up. But the reason Tekashi 6ix9ine was dismissed from the racketeering charge is for cooperating. That's why they figure out who is the head honcho. And think about it this way too. You got to get the head person first. So if it's John Gotti, you got to get John first. And to get John, you got to give deals to whoever you want to testify. And then after you get John Gotti, then you could go ahead and execute whatever deal you're going to have. But at the same time, the prosecution is allowed, the defense, when somebody gets on that stand, the defense is allowed to say, you were offered immunity. Isn't it true? You were offered immunity. Isn't it true? You were offered a deal if you cooperated. Isn't it true? You're cooperating. They're allowed to say all of that because that is directly relevant for the jury. The jury gets to be able to take into consideration your motive for testifying. So just like how the jury was able to consider that Cassie got 20 million from Diddy and 10 more from the hotel, a jury can consider the fact that, hey, you could be facing, let's say if it's Harvey Pierre, Harvey, you could be facing life in a RICO if you're not getting up here putting all the blame on Diddy. And then a jury gets to decide, do we even want to give this person testimony any credibility? Hit that like. I wonder about the kids in trust funds too. I know they're doing everything he's doing everything in his power to protect as much money as possible. The number one way that he's protecting it is, remember, he had the California house. He was trying to sell the California house. I don't know if it's sold. And then my hypothesis is he was going to buy an even bigger Miami house because Florida has unlimited homestead protection. In other words, even if he gets found liable for all, right, let's say he ends up owing people $100 million. Under Florida law, they can't take your house. They cannot take your house. It doesn't matter how expensive your house is in Florida. But in California, if it's LA area, they can, if your house is worth over $600,000, they can force a sale and keep anything over $600K. So he would be screwed. Let me see. Has Diddy sold the California house? Let's see. Has Diddy sold? I don't know that he can. The reason I'm saying that, has Diddy sold his California house? No, he hasn't. Okay, we got another caller. Hold on. Let me tell you, I own a title company, you guys, called Experience Title. When you call my office, which you can go to SimoneRedwine.com. Butterfly, I'm going to get you in just a second. Excellent. Anyone else who wants to join, click that link. I had put the link. I pinned it. It's at the top of the YouTube chat. So you just have to pull up the YouTube chat to do so. But I own a company, Experience Title, experiencetitlellc.com. And you can call my law office, or you could go to experiencetitle.com. If you have any closings in the state of Texas, we close, we make sure you have your estate issues, all of that. And the reason I was trying to check and see if he sold California house, which he has not, is any of his victims in civil court that have pending suits, that's a good sign. They will be able to attach what's called a lien to that California house, which it says the property is temporarily removed from the market and then relisted. It remains available. Oh, 61 million. Okay, the house is worth 61 million. That means they can force a sale. And if it's worth 61 million, either he can't sell it until he pays them off. Yeah, that's what it'll be. It would be a lien against the house. In other words, he can't even sell the $61 million house until he pays them whatever judgment. If they get a judgment from a court in time before he sells the house, then they would have to do that. So that's great news for the victims, because if he had already sold the house, that wouldn't be the option. All right, let me know. What's your thoughts? What are your thoughts there, Butterfly? Oh, you're on mute, honey. Just unmute yourself. Right. Let's see. Did I unmute you?
Hello?
Oh, yeah.
Do you hear me?
There you go.
Hey, girl, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good this Monday. I thought, okay, so weren't his like assets and his like money frozen? So like he can't really do any business like selling wise because one, that was part of the reason why he cannot get bail because that man is a flight risk. He was about to leave the fucking country. Excuse my language, but like he has access to a lot of and that's very dangerous for victims, witnesses, and even the dang judges. We've seen it happen, right? So I think his stuff is not working because of that. But it kind of confused me too, sis. He is the head of the snake. He is the man who essentially hired everybody. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And what I would like to know, are we going to get nurses that came forward? But then again, that would lead to them losing their licenses and all that.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No. Nurses, like the ones that tended to Cassie.
Well, not just her, but yeah, because there was
Hold on. If you got your YouTube on, just lower your volume.
Okay, hold on 1 second. So sorry. Is it better now?
Okay, yes, it is.
Okay. Go ahead if you were responding back.
Yeah. So say it again.
Because so I knew about that from her testimony, but there was also what's his name? It was like security guards besides Gene, that's his name. But there was another one who like would corroborate. Yes, like there were liquid IVs, there were nurses who would when there was like open wounds and like, whatnot, and even makeup and hair, like who helped Cassie, you know what I mean? Like are they all coming forward, or is that just not known yet because it is an 8-week trial?
Yeah, it is an 8-week trial. I believe 4 weeks are supposed to be the prosecution, and 2 are supposed to be the defense's presentation. I think the volume is still on. I think for wherever you were watching it before. I don't know if it was your phone or your TV. You could turn it down, but either way, or you could just mute for real quick. But I would say so. As far as having a nurse testify that like she tended to Cassie's wounds, I don't know that that's necessary because I don't think there's a dispute that Cassie was beat. They put in photos, although the people that are not in the courtroom couldn't see them, but there were photos that were shown to the jury. There are multiple people that testified to both witnessing the beating, but also witnessing the black eyes. So what you generally want to do is you want to put on your best evidence. So if there's 5 people that can attest to something, sometimes the judge won't let you call all 5. He'll say that's redundant. He'll say, we got to get this case moving. He'll say, if all 5 are going to say the same thing, pick 2. Pick 1 or pick 2. And so that's why I think we wouldn't necessarily have a nurse, and we likely wouldn't need one, is because there's so many other people. And I don't think there's a dispute that she was hit or that he did it. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I see Judge Dredd. Let me answer this question real quick on the screen. I made a poll. All right, mute yourself just real quickly. Okay, good. I made a poll that said, do you guys think you have seen evidence of bribery? Here we got. Okay, I see 81% say yes. Let me see if I can put this up. Okay. 81% have said yes. So let me see if I can show. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see it, but yeah, 81%. I'm going to end it. 81% say yes, they've seen evidence of bribery. Okay, so we got that. But what I'd say here, we got this comment question here I wanted to respond to, which is that I haven't heard evidence of bribery. They have to show he paid the hotel off. The security guard said he didn't take the money, and we don't know what happened to the video from the hotel. It just went missing. So that's actually not what bribery is. Bribery is simply the asking. So if you ask someone, hey, will you take this money to make this go away? That's the bribery. That you don't get rewarded by the person having morals or character and saying no. So the bribery, because the bribery is just the asking, that's all the testimony that you would have needed. But then they also did put on testimony that $100,000 was paid to the hotel. There was someone related to the hotel that testified themselves that the hotel received $100,000 in exchange for not speaking about the incident. So you got it that way too. And then thirdly, I think I referenced the fact that they paid Cassie $10 million is strong evidence of guilt, because what hotel is going to give you $10 million if they didn't do something wrong? All right. So we can go back. So you can, there you go. Anything else you wanted to add, Butterfly?
I 100% agree with you. So correct me if I'm wrong. Is blackmailing also a part of RICO? Right. That's what I like. If you can prove it, because look, and a part of why, yes, Cassie get that money, because he did not fulfill his promise on getting her music career. And why would he ever a 10-album contract, but also he halted her career because of the stuff he was committing and doing on her. Therefore, get your money. But because we know this, is blackmailing essentially also a part of this RICO?
So the blackmailing goes to related to Cassie. The blackmailing is relevant to the force that was used for the ST. Basically, the prosecution's theme is that he used the blackmail for stay in the relationship, and in turn do the nasty stuff, do things she didn't want to do. So that's where that comes from. So yeah, because the force, the threats, the coercion, blackmail is coercion. Blackmail is a threat. So that's how that flows into it. The blackmail is part of what was done to effectuate the ST according to the prosecution's theory. So thank you so much, Butterfly.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, Judge Dreads, you're next. All right.
Hello.
Hey, oh, good, a man. Yeah, somebody said I didn't know about the 100,000. Yeah, the hotel received $100,000 from Diddy. That's part of why were in big trouble. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think you've seen anything proven?
Well, first of all, I'm a legal assistant. I work for a defense attorney, so I have a little bit of knowledge. In Houston, Texas, I'm a Texan, by the way, so you get
Me
kudos.
too. That's where I'm recording from, Houston, Texas.
Okay.
Red Line Law Firm.
So yeah, I've studied the law. I know, and most attorneys, criminal defense attorneys that have been on these media shows are really saying, for the most part, that they don't have a case as far as what he's being charged with. Yes, he has been proven to be a domestic violence, prick. But I'm not seeing the human trafficking for one reason. I'm going to address the chat. You a lawyer, you will understand what I say. I'm going to address the chat that people, when you hear sex crimes, people have emotional responses to that. Would you agree with that?
Very true. Very true.
They're not dealing with the facts of the case. Some women have been in violent situations. I can see why they ride with Cassie. That's understand. We all human. But people saying Diddy is a pimp. Pimp do not pay women to have sex with them. The women give him money to have sex with other men. So human trafficking is just another synonym for pimps. Would you agree as a lawyer?
It's very close. The only difference between prostitution and the trafficking is coercion. The prostitutes are not being coerced to do that. They're getting paid. That's why they're there. They want their money and they want to go on their way. The trafficked people are there because they are technically, I guess you could pay a trafficked person as well, but they're there because they're being forced to or intimidated or blackmailed. That's the difference.
Okay, so that's key to the human trafficking. In Cassie's own testimony, she was mostly down with this. I think we all heard what she said. She couldn't wait to have a freak out. What you have, ma'am, is a situation of swingers. And a lot of people don't know how these people get down. These people were having a kinky type of habits in their lifestyle. That's not human trafficking. That's people having kinky lifestyles in their own home. So
Okay.
now the traffic of the racketeering, I'm not really seeing how they are applying that to that case, because when you think of racketeering, you're thinking about mafia people, stuff like that. I don't see the criminal element in them charging him with that. They
Okay.
might
So
have
R.
something.
Kelly. So let's analyze it to R. Kelly. R. Kelly was also charged with racketeering, and that's how they got him for life. And it was because they basically were saying he would then use his workers, his friends, his staff, whoever, to go to these high schools and pick these girls up, fly the girls in, to buy their flights, to buy their tickets. So while yes, I think the mafia is the main example I think we're familiar with. An enterprise, he's already said he's an enterprise because he calls himself Sean Combs Enterprises. So the enterprise is simply him telling people to do his dirty work. And so long as there's at least one or two illegal things that he's telling people to do, that's where you get the enterprise part.
But don't you have to be making money doing the crime?
Nope, that's not required.
Okay.
You don't have to.
I stand corrected on that. I'm gonna research it,
Okay.
but I'll take your word for it right now.
No
But
problem.
certainly they have not proved human trafficking, because Cassie was down with
Okay.
it. A lot of these people that were involved were watching this here stuff. Now, you said something that there might be secret indictments. That's true, but so far we don't know that. All we know is what
I
we're
do.
hearing, right?
I
You
do.
know, you
Yeah,
know for a fact that other people are
I
being
do.
charged
Yes.
along with
Here's
Diddy.
how I know. Here's how I
Okay.
know. Because I was personally approached by someone who was ordered by the feds to come in and basically speak with them. They were someone who participated in these activities. They asked me to represent them. They wanted representation as they went and negotiated with the feds. That's how I know for certain that that is the case.
Okay, so as a defense attorney, I would bring up the fact in front of the jury that, okay, this guy is selling Dilly up the road because he don't want to go to jail too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So and they are entitled to know which people have been offered certain things, and then they can get up on there and say that exact thing. I think this was Tip. I didn't mean to pull you down if I did. I want to answer this real quick. Simone, how is S trafficking not proven with Cassie? She and others proved 3 components. Force, he beat her. Fraud, sold her a dream as an artist, but she became his S worker. Coercion. I'm not saying it wasn't proven. What I'm saying is, I think we can agree within the discussions, there's a lot of people who say it hasn't. So what I was just breaking down is, if you're a person who believes that Cassie didn't do these for force, she did it because she didn't want to lose her rich boyfriend, or she did it because he paid all her bills and she didn't want to have to work a regular job at Forever 21 like the rest of us, whatever it is, if you feel that Cassie's conduct was not supported by the force, the fraud, and these elements you've just correctly outlined in the coercion, then what I'm saying is there are still other ways that he would face a life sentence. That's all. Because I feel that at least right now, with the evidence that we have, I feel that there's probably at least one person on the jury that might hold out and be a holdout, so that there would be a mistrial on the S trafficking charge. Because remember, all 12 have to agree and find him guilty of each of the counts. So thank you, Brittany Renee, for the $10 super chat. I wanted to make sure I just answer that. So TP, did you have any final words?
Yes, this is a messy case. I mean,
Yes.
you have a lot of emotion in there, and it's kind of hard for public opinion people to give their opinion about federal charges, right?
Why?
Um, it is because too many people haven't been federally indicted on anything,
Oh,
so
well,
it's kind
that's
of
true.
hard.
Yeah, I want to keep it that way.
Yeah,
I don't ever want to be indicted.
yeah. So, but let me. I I had just got involved in and not in a federal indictment, but I was in an investigation that led to some arrests in a federal indictment, meaning that when it went down, uh, some of the stuff was supposedly had a warrant to my house, right?
Okay.
And when the indictment came, when they did the sweep, they came to my house. They didn't find anything what they thought that they was going to find because,
Okay.
you know, they didn't, because I don't play that. But
Got it.
But
Good.
the thing is, how the feds was trying to play the game
Yeah.
is, okay, they bring you in here and they're gonna tell you, look, if this what we got on you, or this what we can prove, or we can make it prove, if you do this or you do that,
Yeah.
or this what you gonna get. You either gonna max you
Right.
out, or you gonna plead out to this, that, and other.
That's
And
right.
it depends on how you react, is this was how it's gonna go down. But by
Right.
me knowing that they didn't have nothing on my nephew, and they didn't really have none on surveillance, let's take them all away. So we took them all the way. Lucky God seeks high and look low,
He
that
loved
them
him.
boy, yeah, them boys came from under it. But in the Diddy stuff, he been around so many people. That's why it's, you know, when they get rich and think they powerful and arrogant, you don't know who in.
That's right. Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you sharing your story. And I'm glad that it worked out well for you and your family. So, TP, thank you for listening. I hope you subscribe. Hit that subscribe, guys. I'm going to put you down now. NYC Girl, and then we have Timeless. NYC Girl, if anyone else wants to join, there is actually a link to join the call in. There you go. A link to join the call in. Here we go. There you go. The link to join the call-in is in the chat. So if you act like you're trying to make a comment on the YouTube chat, you can just scan there. You can, okay, NYC Girl.
Hello,
While
can you
you're,
hear me?
yes, I can hear you now. Before you join, I have a super chat. Thank you, a super sticker. It says, Tommy J says, oop, and I see you got your graduation cap and gown. Congratulations on graduating. It said, what's the difference between kidnapping and false imprisonment? Great question. The difference, honestly, is the amount of distance that someone is taken. Let me give you an example. False imprisonment was what Christian Gold from, Jennifer Williams and Christian Gold from Basketball Wives. He went to prison for false imprisonment / DV, but false imprisonment of his ex-girlfriend. I'll say it wasn't / DV, but it was, he was actually found not guilty of DV, but he was found guilty of falsely imprisoning her. What happened was he locked her on their patio, locked her on there. It was the 3rd floor. She couldn't get out. And then he left the house and locked the front door. So she couldn't get off of the patio without literally jumping. So she had to jump the equivalent of like 3 or 4 floors, broke both of her ankles, lost her job, had no health insurance, was in a wheelchair for 3 months. That was considered false imprisonment, right? Because he didn't take her nowhere else. They were already at home, but he locked her in a place where she couldn't get out. Versus kidnapping is there's movement there. So if he would have took her from the house and then drove her somewhere and locked her in the new location, like maybe his homeboy's house, that would be kidnapping. So I hope that helps. Thank you, Tommy. All right. NYC Girl, what's up?
Hey, how you doing today?
Good.
I just had because and I actually had to write a note because somebody was talking about something completely
Sure.
different.
And hold on one question. I want to answer this. Someone was asking, who did this happen to? I think the question was because she was thinking about Cassie's situation with the hotel fight. Because I had said under California law, it likely didn't rise to kidnapping because California requires you to move them a quote substantial distance for it to be kidnapping. So, you couldn't just taking them from the elevator to the room likely wouldn't have been enough, but it could have been enough for false imprisonment. The problem is that statute of limitations expired in Cassie's case. All right, go ahead, NYC Girl.
But you know what? It's really good that you brought up the I wanted to talk about something else also, but it's good that you brought up the hotel again because somebody said, I think it was the coercion or something with the sex worker, like you can't prove the sex trafficking, right? Because he wasn't like forced or coerced.
Mm-hmm.
But when you said that, okay, he went to like 13 states with them. I believe that it was
that with the sex work. That one was prostitution.
Yeah, but when
with those workers
took a picture of his driver's license and he felt intimidated, then at any state he went to after that point, would that not be coercion?
Oh, I like that. Arguably, they could certainly argue that. That'd definitely be something they'd want to bring home in the closing. But also, if that's the case, they may need to bring him back to have him testify as to they would need testimony where he would say he did things he didn't want to do out of fear that Diddy was going to use that ID and come after his friends or family. If they've gotten that testimony, then yes, then that could be good.
Okay, so, but the reason why that stood out to me is because I saw an interview that a member of Making the Band had made, and I don't want to get his name incorrect, but I believe his name was Freddie.
Oh, Freddie? Okay, there's Freddie and there's Chopper, yeah.
Yeah, it was on YouTube, and he said, allegedly, reportedly, he has said that Diddy told him, like, it was at one point he wanted to leave the group, he wanted to go back home, he was uncomfortable in his space, he didn't, he wanted to leave, he wanted out, and Diddy told him, basically threatened him to the fact, like, I will buy your whole block where you live, and I will cut off all the lights in every building on that whole block, and I'll have shooters on the roof, and everybody that leaves your apartment will get shot. Everybody. I don't care who. Not even you. Like your mother, your daughter. And it was on YouTube. I saw this. Now, I'm saying what he said is allegedly what he said, but I saw him saying this. So the fear that he had to say, and what he said after he said that statement, he said, and you could tell the way he's talking, like, yeah, he's a street person. He's very much, he's like, listen, I'm not a punk. Like he said, when people talk to me like that, I'm like, let me show you who I am. Like, you ain't gonna be talking to me like that. But he was like, that was the only time in his life that he ever felt threatened. He said because Diddy had power, and he said in that moment. So he said in that moment, he literally pictured, because Diddy actually had the money and the power, he actually felt that fear in his chest to where he saw the block going dark. He saw, I
hope he testifies.
And so he was like, oh no, I'm good. Like you got it, you win, But if that is the type of fear that other people can describe, that do come on the stand talking about Diddy, and is that not coercion? Like, is that not like you're fearing for your life? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, so coercion is needed. Let's clarify. Coercion is needed to move prostitution from prostitution to sex trafficking, which has a bigger punishment. That's where coercion comes in. But what you're talking about, yes, that coercion goes into what I have here on the screen, which is E as in egg, forced labor. Remember, these are the things that they got to prove. They only have to prove 2 of these 8 to be found guilty of racketeering. Here we go. You're racketeering. And then we got A was the kidnapping, B is the arson, C is bribery, D, witness tampering, E is forced labor. That's forced labor. That's what it is. He said, if you leave, I'm going to do those things. So we're going to have people from the band. It's my understanding. I actually think it's Choppa is going to be one. Choppa hates him. When I say hate.
Or maybe I don't know exactly what the name. I can see
whether it's Choppa, whether it's Freddie. Freddie was another one. But I think that it was like, the argument is that Diddy operated like a mob boss, but simply for the music industry. I'm sorry. Wait. How is Diddy a mob boss, but he never shot no one? That's not true. That is not true. There is a woman who claims he shot her in the face in 2001 at that nightclub, if you don't forget, but that he had Shine take the rap. And when she testified and they asked her who shot you, she said Diddy, and he still was found not guilty of it. So no, that's not true. But also a lot of mob bosses don't do the shooting. That's why it's RICO. If you direct someone else to do it, it's just as good. It's just as good. So I'm so glad you made that. You asked that question because it's a good one. It's a good one.
So if the bribery, even though, like, okay, so the ask is the bribery, but just because people are saying, oh, the security guard didn't take it, that's not bribery.
Correct.
Even though he asked the security guard, that security guard did not take it, but he was off for 2 days, came back. Somebody even though he did not take it, somebody took with the hotel did take it because it ended up missing.
And it was not disputed. The hotel didn't dispute. The hotel acknowledged that someone received $100,000 for it. So How are they proving the arson? This is hearsay. There's no evidence to connect Diddy to the bombing other than people saying so. Hold on a second. It's not necessary. It's not hearsay if you were there. It's also not hearsay if you're a co-conspirator and you're admitting to assistance with a crime. So I totally hear you, because hearsay usually is a out of court statement admitted to prove the fact of the matter. But if they have someone, for example, who took the call from Diddy and Diddy called, like, let's say it was KK. I don't know. Example. Let's say Diddy called KK and said, yo, oh boy, gotta go. Kid Cudi gotta go. Make it happen. And then they went and worked with someone and made it happen. Kind of like with the turkey leg hut here in Houston. The owner said the guy across the street, his bar needs to be blown up, right? So then his friends got together and blew up the bar. His conversation saying it needs to be blown up, yes, that's hearsay, but it is admissible, because whenever the defendant is stating something, then that makes it admissible. But also there might be phone calls. We don't know yet, but for the arson, it could be phone calls. It could be Diddy may have said, if you don't leave her alone, I'm gonna blow your ish up. And then miraculously, the next day or a week from then, his stuff got blew up. A jury is allowed to take what's called circumstantial evidence there and piece it together and say, hold on, he said he was going to do it. It happened within a week. This happened. And yeah, so we can correlate the two. So that's a really good question. No evidence. So the answer is we don't know that there's no evidence. There's got to be something. The fact that they listed arson in this thing, they listed it, they put it in there, means there is in fact evidence.
I was gonna ask you that, because I'm like, a lot of people are saying they haven't proven this, but they are not showing us everything. They're showing the jury, and the jury is seeing evidence, to confirm these allegations. And if I'm not mistaken, Cassie on the stand said that it's not like hearsay. She was in the meeting with Diddy and Kid Cudi when they spoke about, you blew up my car, and he's like, what car? Like, oh, I got rid of that. There's no evidence of that. You can't prove that, because again, he had somebody, I don't know who, we don't know who, but it was basically erased. You can't prove that, so whatever, move on, stay away from my girl, and on to the next.
But honestly, that should be admissible. If what he said is you can't prove it, that's hearsay that should be admissible, because that speaks to he did it. He didn't say I didn't do it. He said you can't prove I did it. That's something a guilty person says. Because if you're innocent, you say, no, I didn't. If you did it, you say, you can't prove it. It torments somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your commentary. I really appreciate it, NYC girl. I'm going to go ahead and pull you down. Nadia, I'm going to let you up. Hey, Nadia Holloway. Hey, girl.
How are you?
Good. And y'all, don't forget, you can always go to my website, SimoneRedwine.com, if you are interested in a consultation. If it's for personal injury, if you're injured anywhere in the nation, those consults are free. Other types, they start at $159 for 30-minute consult. So we'll go from there. Oh, also, and don't forget, if you have a real estate property that you want to sell or buy in the state of Texas, you can also call my office, Experience Title, and we do real estate closings. All right, Nadia, what are your thoughts, girl? Do you think anything has been proven here? We need to know.
So I'm forever tagging you on Instagram, like, girl, what you think about this?
Oh, I love it.
I'm forever tagging you, but I'm just so irritated, because I'm just like, how y'all
don't see it?
One, I feel like people don't understand. Yes, she was a domestic violence victim, but she was also sex trafficked. Like, both things can be true, and both things are true. He was definitely whooping on her. We know that for a fact. We all saw the video. But also, when he's saying, well, I'm going to show your tapes, I'm going to release your tapes, that's the force. That's the coercion. When she's having UTIs and she's on her menstrual, that's the force right there. So for them to say, like, oh, she's just a DV victim. No, she was a DV victim, absolutely. But he was also trafficking the heck out of her. Like, to me, the proof is so irrefutable that my mind is baffled as to how other people don't see this. It's almost like they think, well, if you're a domestic violence victim, you can't also be an ST victim. Yeah, you can. And she was.
That's a good point. It can be both. It is not a one or the other. It can absolutely be both. What makes it ST is the force. is the coercion, is that if you don't do this, I'm going to ruin your career. If you don't do this, I'm going to release these videos that'll ruin your career.
Now,
all of that.
People are saying like, oh, it's a one-man RICO charge. So to my understanding, I haven't heard you talk about it because I'm working like you, so I'm a little bit behind on.
I'll repeat what I said before. Go ahead.
I heard that she and others have signed proffer agreements. So my thing is, he's not on trial alone. Everybody has decided to save themselves because they know that's what he would do. So nobody's standing 10 toes down for him. But yes, correct. Co-conspirators, they are just now cooperating with the federal government.
Yes. So I talked about that earlier, but that was the word I intended to use. So I represented someone who was accused, for example, of PPP fraud, and they were one person of an alleged conspiracy. So the first thing that the federal prosecutors did is they coordinated an appointment for us to come in and literally do that, do a proffer. A proffer is what we call it. A proffer is where you come in and you tell them, you give them all the names you can. You tell them everything you've experienced. You give them all the names. And in doing so, you get immunity for that session. As long as you're telling the truth for that session, they can't use anything that they obtained from you in that session against you. But it's also used to decide whether or not they want to work on a deal with you. So what happens then is they get that proffer. They've got this testimony of you that's the initial testimony, and it allows them to decide what kind of deal they want to offer you and how important are you in the grand scheme of things. Here's the thing. They are not going to charge the person who cleaned up the hotel room with the baby oil. They're probably not going to charge them with anything. They're probably not also going to charge the S worker who was working according to being paid by him. Probably not. Why? Because in comparison, the harms of those things are a lot lower. Now, for people who did the arson, right? So let's assume the arson, for the people who made the bomb, for the people who do that, those people could be facing some time. But they're going to tell them, you come in, you do your proffer based on what you told me. All right, we need you to come to court and you got to say what you told us before. Or if you lie, then this offer we got on the table for you is gone, baby. It's gone. And you finna go to jail and y'all finna sit next to each other over at the Brooklyn. Brooklyn Center.
Next to and I feel like that's what a lot of us lay people aren't understanding, that it's not that he doesn't have co-conspirators, is that they all have these agreements in place and that they are all testifying either for immunity or hopefully for reduced sentences or reduced charges. But this is definitely not a one-man RICO case the way people seem to think it is, just because he's sitting at that defendant's table by himself.
Also, I said earlier, but you always get the head honcho first. That way you've confirmed that people have testified accordingly, especially when they're being charged with tampering with witnesses. If you let them go second, if you say, you want them to testify first, because without their testimony, you can't get to the head guy. Also, there's a risk that they're going to come up missing and so many things. Let me tell you, the prosecution has been so fearful. They got, my understanding is they have trackers on witnesses. They have security with the witnesses at all times. They are truly concerned that witnesses will come up missing as a result of Diddy. Also, where's my gavel? I don't know where my, let me give you guys this thing.
Don't we have somebody missing already? Victim number 3 or victim number
4? Yes, victim number 3 is missing. So here's what I've learned from that. So allegedly, victim 3 was offered a financial settlement. But here's how the settlements work. They give them a little bit of money. They give them some money up front for agreeing to the settlement, enough for them to take it and run, get out the country. You can't subpoena somebody outside of the country, and you, for the most part, you can't force them to come back unless there's an extradition treaty. But then they give them money to leave. And then the rest of the money that there's going to be paid to them, they get upon the date of conviction or after conviction, basically. So they don't get the rest of the money till after the verdict comes in. You see what I'm saying? So therefore,
is that witness tampering?
I think so. I don't know how it couldn't be. And any lawyer that would allow their client to sign that, I don't know how you wouldn't be forced to go in front of the bar.
Right.
Yes. But so my understanding, what I have been told, is that the settlements he's negotiating, he's calling them all civil settlements. The civil settlements he's trying to negotiate people don't get paid till after this trial is over. In other words, if you go up there and you get them locked up, you ain't getting your money more than likely. But what probably happens if he doesn't have.
How does he still have money to pay people?
So there was in the indictment, there is some documentation. He has to be able to have enough money to pay his lawyers. So they're not going to take it all. You have to be able to pay your lawyers. He's not allowed to sell property or any of that without the permission of the court, which is probably why his $61 million California property was on the market, then removed from the market. But it's also in part because everybody knows that Diddy right now is going through this. So if he wants 61 million for it, people are probably only offering him 30 and being like, we'll just wait this sucker out. Understandably, I don't knock him for that. So we got Timmy. All right, we got another person. Any last comments there?
Well, no, I'm just waiting to see I want James Cruz to testify. I would love to see Lil Rod testify because
James Cruz is James Cruz is a former president of Bad Boy.
When I am
sure James Cruz has a proffer. I am sure of it. And he is probably terrified out of his mind. Out of his mind.
I'm yes, let you go, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll see you on Instagram, boo.
All right, take care. All right, and then we've got the last person we got is Quay. Quay, I'm gonna let you up, and then we're gonna pull Nadia down. Yeah, Quay.
There we go. What's going on? How you doing today?
Hey, Quay. Oh, good. I like a man's opinion. All right.
Now, for me, I feel like he's a scum. He's a bad dude. We know what type of guy he is. The problem I have with this case is it's more about domestic violence. It's more about domestic violence, his character and who he is. I don't think the feds really want him. I think they want to ruin his character, his name, and who he is as a person.
Okay.
Because if you really think about it, a key witness was Cassidy. And remember, she said something at the end that people need to pay attention. I love what we had. And a lot of people didn't pay attention. And if you go back, there was people that was in that courtroom when she was talking. There was jury people looking at her sideways.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think this is about RICO. I think that he will beat this case. I think he will beat it. I think, but him as a bad boy and who he is, his reputation, his career is over. He might as well keep his millions and go underground.
Now that I agree, I definitely agree with this. But how do they get past the fact that they've already proven prostitution?
Here's why. Because the reality is she was a willing participant. And remember, she also said that she was the ones looking for these guys. So,
but they're not alleging she's the prostitute. They weren't alleging she was the prostitute.
Right. But remember,
that she hired prostitutes.
Right. So remember, it has to be where it's more than one person. And because she said that she was the one hiring, how can you define him in hiring them when she already clearly said in front of the jury that it was her that was hiring them?
She said it was at his instruction that she was hiring them.
And there was another thing, a part of this case too, people didn't pay attention to. A lot of people didn't pay attention because Cassie was the number one defense. She was the number one person. Witness. Whatever happened to her and what went with her, I feel bad for her. Like as a human being, as a man, I got a daughter. Like I would never want that. But there was interesting parts about this case too that we found out about. She cheated on her new husband with Diddy.
That was interesting.
She cheated on K. Cudi with Diddy.
That was interesting.
Ryan, she kept cheating on him.
We knew about Ryan. We knew Ryan wasn't gonna last too long. He was nice, but I heard him.
And there was another part to this. You told the jury and the people in court this man raped you, but then the next day you went and had sex with him.
I don't think it was the next day, but I hear you. That was actually one of the factors that I said is going to go against that offense. To the extent that the jury is supposed to believe that, yes, and women say all the time, one, you could have 100 yeses, that one no is no, and that still means it's an offense. That's true. But where a fact finder has to decide what do I find credible and what is a more reasonable understanding of the facts, as far as who's telling the truth, I think there could definitely be people on the jury who would have trouble believing that R word took place, given the fact that she consensually was with him after. And I wouldn't be surprised if her husband is only finding out for the first time that she consensually, was with him again. I also found it interesting that, if I have my facts correct, from what I recall, the one R word that did take place, I believe it was the instance where he FaceTimed. No. Let me take that back. No. I'm going to take that back. That wasn't necessary.
And I'm gonna tell you something else too. A lot of people going hard on that girl, but clearly she still loved him. And clearly when she was on that stand, she was trying to help him also. Pay attention. A lot of people don't want to pay attention. That woman was trying to help him also.
How so? Tell me more.
She could have easily pleaded the Fifth Amendment to everything they was asking her.
Well, you only plead the Fifth if it would incriminate yourself. You cannot plead the Fifth if you're given an offer.
And also,
so I don't think she was given an offer. The only reason I say I don't think she was is due to the fact that I'm certain the defense would have elicited that. If she was given an offer, one, they have to tell the defense, and two, the defense would have been the first thing out the gate. You've been given an offer. Instead of you facing any charges, you're here throwing him under the bus because you don't want to FaceTime. They would have done that. But yeah, she doesn't need to plead the Fifth because she's not facing any charges.
Yeah, but I would say this. I really think heart to heart, listening to everything, going back and forth, I think he's going to get off. I think he's going to have that one jury. I believe it's going to be a mistrial. I think he's going to have that one jury or maybe two people who's like, no, this is not a sex trafficking case. But I will say, I truly think the feds they not trying to indict him. They wanted to ruin him as a person, a man, a human being.
Well, this was a real expensive way to do it because they did say this trial cost $25 million. So I think they should have found a better use of our taxpayers if that was it. But thank you so much for your thoughts, Quay. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, great. All right, next up will be Purple Rain. And thank you, Hudson Saint & Co. I got a super sticker for $4.99. She said, MTV needs to be subpoenaed. He was acting a fool on making the band, even throwing chairs at women. He did that with Lorianne Gibson. We want to see those tapes now. They have them. And when Lorianne gets to the stand, they're going to pull them out. That's why Lorianne is there, honey. That's why she is listed as a witness. That's why she is excited. That is why. Yes. Also because apparently he would shut off so there was an incident with Lorianne where Diddy and Michael Bivens were going at it with Lorianne and they were yelling at her. One of them picked up a chair and allegedly hit her with the chair. But before that happened, Diddy said, turn off the cameras, cut the cameras. So she'll be able to speak to the fact that there was a bunch of stuff that happened. And then he would make footage go missing, tampering with witnesses, etc. And then she actually, after this happened and she was hit, went to the police, filed a police report, and the police ultimately said they were not able to pursue charges because there wasn't enough evidence, which means whatever the evidence was went missing. It was not there. So yes, Hudson Saint, that is a excellent comment. All right. Now, last comment will be from Purple Rain. Thank you so much for being a loyal subscriber. Hit that subscribe button, y'all. I'm attorney Simone, your legal bestie. I break down legal cases on social media and YouTube here at Girl, Is That Legal? What are your thoughts, Purple Rain? What you got?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I have a lot, but I did have a particular question in regards to, so you know how Cassie signed a 10-album deal at 19, right? And you understand that makes her an employee, or I don't know what the tax classification of that would be. But I guess what I'm trying to understand is if she would have still been able to get that type of settlement if she wasn't also an employee, like if she was just dating him.
If she was just dating him, could she have gotten that? So the answer is not as quickly as she did. Hold on, let me play. I'm going to play the, this is a viral social media clip. I was on a podcast breaking this down. This has had over 100,000 views across all media platforms. Here's the breakdown, and then feel free to ask. Hell no, we giving her the money.
We're hearing you.
Oh, let me start it over.
Her attorneys were really brilliant. They didn't sue just Diddy. They sued his corporation.
They should
Wigdor
have.
LLC.
And they sued his corporations and
Yep,
sued
Wigdor.
in her capacity as an employee. When you do that, it triggers commercial liability insurance. And
Employment insurance
there's another
specifically.
policy called directors and officers. Okay. And we know he's a director of these
Correct.
companies as the CEO. So now you got two policies. What happens then is it takes away Puffy's ability to settle. It's not his choice no more.
So it's no longer personal accountability. It's his organization.
It's his organization. And it's no different than like if you hit somebody with your car. Let's say you have State Farm. State Farm gets to decide to settle, not you. You could say, I didn't run the stop sign. That's not true. They're lying. If State Farm says, we don't care, we did our investigation, we're settling. That's it. That's what happened here. So because they added those claims, the corporate insurance carrier got to say, read over and say, oh, hell no, we giving her the money.
We're hearing you.
Yep. So that's how that happened. Does that help make sense?
Yeah, but I guess the part that I am trying to gain clarity on is when it comes to because there's like a popular saying, because I notice people keep acting like she's an SW worker and that she was in control when she was 19 in a 17-year age gap. I don't think she knew it would turn out this way, but the reason why I'm asking is because a lot of girls in that world of, as in like people who date Felix Richmond or whatever, they tell them not to let him put you on payroll. And I'm thinking like, yeah, it's a very popular thing. Like, don't go on payroll, don't make him, like, don't work for him, don't do nothing. Everything needs to be in cash. But I'm wondering if she would have still been able to, because even that law firm, they're known to get the big bucks, and their thing is employee and sexual assault cases, and
that's right, employee
their
lawsuit.
specific niche. And I'm thinking, like, what if she didn't? Which is, it's kind of sad because, like,
so here's the difference. If it was not written up, if the lawsuit wasn't written up as though she was an employee, it would not have triggered that insurance. So it would not have been settled as quickly. It'd be like all these other lawsuits, like Little Rod, like the Jane Does, like the teenage girl, all those other people, where they're still waiting for their money. It would be just like them, because those all have to be paid by Diddy personally. Some of them have named his entities like Bad Boy and stuff like that, but just because you name them doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to come in, and it doesn't trigger insurance. By triggering insurance, that's where you trigger the faster settlement. The only other person that called themselves an employee was Dawn. So Saber asked a great question. She said, Simone, is Dawn and Cassie, are they employees or independent contractors? They are technically, they're employees because under their music deals, so it could be argued either way for certain things, but pursuant to the contract and as far as triggering employment law policies, they satisfy that as employees. Dawn's issue is simply that Dawn filed her lawsuit a lot later. See, Dawn filed it last September, and I believe that the window closed for most of her claims in March, which is why Friday, Diddy's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss based on statute of limitations. Now, part of what she's saying is unpaid wages, unpaid royalties. She can still roll back. I think it's 3 years, 4 years, whatever the SOL is. She can get whatever they owed her for the last 4 years and didn't pay her. But if the statute of limitation is passed on anything other than that, she's going to be screwed, and her other claims will be dismissed.
Okay, yeah, that clears a lot of things up. But I guess just to stay with the girl, with Cassie, she signed the deal at 19, and they're telling us they didn't begin the relationship until she was 21. Even though in my head I don't believe that, because it doesn't make sense. But that's the story they're trying to go with, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. But yeah, I think I just wanted to specifically ask that question because a lot of girls, like, they kind of, because even right now there's actually this quick situation with
and Gia, reconnect your device. Hold on, there's a Gia down below. Gia, if you can reconnect your device, I'll come to you next. Unless you go ahead.
I just real quick. Basically, there's a recent situation because I know there's a trend of these girls living with these men, and Lil
Yeah.
Wayne has a situation with his ex-girl Denise, and she's about to be on Sports Illustrated this summer, and he just kicked her out flat out, and she's been with him since 2020, and I'm thinking, does she even have rights? Because technically she's not married. Technically, you know what I mean, as in terms of like, you're not an employee, you're not, there's no like contracts or anything there,
Mm-hmm.
but but you want to be able to sue. But I'm thinking, like, in order to be able to get, I guess, damages or get a payout, a settlement, like, wouldn't, if you're going to a law firm, wouldn't they want somebody who fits a certain profile or has certain things on paper already? Or
Yeah,
just like
they're gonna want certain, well, strong, like somebody who's got strong evidence. So the
yeah.
reason people were excited to take Cassie's case is she kept her cell phones from back in those days, right, with everything on it, and she had such strong levels of proof. So yeah, they may judge people on who they are now, but it really just depends on how strong of a person they're going against on the opposite side, and whether there's an insurance policy there, or whether you're just going after this rich person and you're going to hope and pray that they pay you. Because as we've seen, like with the game, he's been fighting this lawsuit. Gia, you're next. He's been fighting this lawsuit since like 2014 or something. And that law firm hasn't, been paid a dime, but they just sold his house. So thank you, Purple Rain. I appreciate you.
No
Y'all
problem.
hit that subscribe.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Hit that subscribe button, y'all. Hit that like as well. All right, Gia, what you got?
Hello, Simone. You are
Hi.
my favorite new channel. I am.
Thank you.
I love your commentary. Okay, so I have a couple of things.
Okay.
So one of the things is, I know that you said for the RICO, everyone says it's never been heard of one person being charged for RICO. My thing is this: why isn't the escort agency included? Why isn't the
so the answer
included?
is it's not that it's never been heard of. It can be one person if the prosecutors feel that one person is the true danger to the community, then that would be why all of the resources are going after that person. But you're saying, why not the escort agency? All right. Those are some good names. Who else? Why not? Who else?
Oh, I said the Cowboys and Angels, all of the different hotel groups. Why weren't they included? I'm thinking of the makeup artists, everybody who knew and covered her face up, and all of these different things, that the doctors and writing these prescriptions. Why weren't all of these people included if they helped to contribute to this enterprise?
Because if you sue them too, you'll never get to Diddy, who is the mastermind. If you sue criminally, if you put fear into every person with evidence to prove that Diddy did it, they're not going to want to testify. Everyone's going to plead the fifth. No one's going to testify. How are you going to prove your case? You have to give offers. You have to give proffers. You have to give immunity. You have to do all of that. Or you have to tell people, there are instances where you don't even have to give immunity. You can tell people, we're not charging you. So you don't need immunity for anything. We're not charging you XYZ. But just think about it. So if they charge the hairdresser, the person that covered that up the bruises, the doctor, the this, the that, then who the hell's going to testify? You can't get to the main guy unless you have witnesses to cooperate. The best analogy that I give is I did a lot of medical device cases as well. So think of there's a lot of medical devices that had recalls, hip implants. I did a bunch of those hip implants that failed. And I'd had a lot of clients that would come and say, well, I also want to sue my doctor. I said, well, we can't. We can't get to the corporation that knowingly made the defective device unless we have your doctor testify that your doctor installed it properly. Because the device company is going to say your doctor was the problem. And then if your doctor is being sued, your doctor is going to say, oh, I'm not testifying, I'm not cooperating. In order to get to the people with the money, which is going to be the device company, we need your doctor to say, this device company taught me how to use it. I did it exactly as they taught me. There were no issues on my side, blah, 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 including the fact that at the end of the day, there's medical malpractice limits with doctors in our state. The most you could even get from a doctor is $250. However, there is zero limit on how much you can get for a corporation that makes a defective device. So that is an analogy to this here. If your ultimate goal is to get Diddy, being the big head honcho, the corporation, the person controlling, if your goal, which is the true goal, is to stop the behavior, right? Stop allowing him to run havoc. Stop allowing him to kidnap, commit arson, traffic people, distribute substances. If that is your goal, then you can't get there if everyone that you need to get there isn't going to help you. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. My other thing is and I'll just land my plane too.
Sure, no problem.
My question is, how is it, I guess, like for the threshold? I also thought that it would be if he was profiting from it. So if he was forcing her to do these acts and was getting some type of compensation for it in the way that, or in that traditional sense, or was getting, STing her out to different executives or something and getting something that benefited him in exchange. Like I'm thinking, no.
So there is an element that says it has to be for commercial sex. And that just means something of value. That would mean Cassie would receive something of value, not him. And that something of value includes the continuation of her record deal. It can include that. It can include not releasing the sex tapes. It can include not releasing, photos. So the of value, and it can also include drugs. Of value actually includes substances. Especially if you know someone is a drug addict. So for trafficking, that's where that comes in. And for racketeering, it doesn't have to be for monetary gain. However, in this instance, a lot of these, or almost all of the things that he's done, that Diddy has allegedly done illegally, he's doing to protect his brand. So that is something of value as well. So for example, he bribed them to get rid of the video because that video would have ruined his brand. That's why he paid $100K for it. He but he gave money to, the girl Morgan, and he clocked on the head with a hammer because he didn't want people to know he knocked her on the head with a hammer. So that's what I mean by something about it. Doesn't have to be cash, because he didn't need, also with the cash, by forcing these people into the labor, like how the artist was saying he wanted to leave and Diddy was like, I'm going to unalive you and make your life hell. That's making someone continue in a terrible contract. So that too is something of value. Does that help?
Yes. Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. Thanks, Gia. And I think you're the last one. You have a great one. And I think is that everybody? Yep, I haven't. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm going to add timestamps. Hit that like button on your way out, and please hit the subscribe as well. We're trying to grow this channel. Appreciate you. I'll be back tomorrow. It's your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. Go to SimoneRedwine.com if you'd like to schedule a consultation or want more information. Thanks again.